Welcome to the Gorgon Readings. Today we will be looking at the second chapter of Samurai Executioner, Volume 1, a manga written by Kazuo Koike and with art by Gozeki Kojima. Kazuo Koike is also known for the manga Crying Freeman, which in 1995 was adapted into a movie starring the legendary Hawaiian actor Mark Dacascos. Please relax and enjoy. The second, Yamada Asaemon the Third. He walks the snowy streets of Nihonbanshi, Tokyo. The recent snow has left this buzzing hubbub of Edo period industry quiet. The thatched roofs of the local homes and businesses dripping their contributions to the tiny rivers he steps through and around as he walks the day-lit streets. As he approaches the gates of the Denmacho prison, the guards open the doors slowly, bowing in reverence. If he is nervous, he shows no signs. He seems serene. The complex he walks into is enormous. Measuring 77 tsubo, a little under 3,000 square feet, he is familiar with every inch. He is expected. He is now kneeling in a room with the Robugyo, who seems pleased to see him again. He reflects on the first time they met, when the boy, later to be known as the Yamada-Ryu, lied his way into a tameshi. The man apologizes. The Robugyo faintly grins. He recalls being baffled by the move. Now, that baffling boy sits before him as the third potential Asaemon. How time flies. The grin becomes a smile as the Robugyo advises him. This is your moment. Show us the essence of your Shito Jutsu. The man acknowledges his lord's confidence. The Lord asks of his father how he must have dreamt of this. The Yamada-Ryu tenses. He tells the Lord he will address this later. The Robugyo notes the response with concern, but he drops the issue. The men move to the yard where the Robugyo is joined by the Okashimono Bugyo and the Machi Bugyo. They all kneel on the preset tatamis and prepare for the demonstration. Now, traditionally, when an otameshi was required, the Koshimono Bugyo directed the Maki Bugyo to set the date and select the criminal. The sword to be used was then tested before the Okashimono Bugyo, his assistants, the palace guard inspector known as the Okashimetsu, the Robugyo and the prison guard lieutenant known as the Roya Yoriki, along with his staff. The date and personnel having been set, the sword testing was about to begin. All staff were ready as the third Yamada-Ryu entered the courtyard and bowed to the assembled lords. The Robugyo made his official decree. For this presentation, the Yamada-Ryu was to execute his first official otameshi in their presence. If done well, the third Yamada-Ryu would then be named O-Tameshiyaku. He would be the official third Yamada Asaemon, successor to his father. He is presented with the sword made by Rai Kunitoshi, one of the greatest swordsmiths in Kyoto. The Yamada-Ryu accepts it. He withdraws the blade, extracts his hilt from his kimono, inserts the full tang of the blade into his hilt and inserts the pin that secures the two together. He takes a swing. The blade feels secure. He is ready. The ceremony can begin. The blade tests were performed on the bodies of commoners already sentenced to death. Their assets were already confiscated. Only a few, such as samurai and priests, were spared this when facing death sentences. It does not seem that this was either. At the appointed hour, the prison executioner known as Kubiichi Doshin decapitated the prisoner, and the body and head were brought to the Tameshi grounds. This body was now placed on a raised mound between 4 bamboo poles, 2 to steady the legs and 2 by the armpits of the raised hands to steady the torso. They gave a clean view for the cut. The Yamada-Ryu approaches with his blade. He aims for the cut. He raises his hands, proclaiming his intention. Abdomen, the first. In one smooth motion, he cleaves the body in 2. The cut is absolute precision. The assembled men are stunned by the skill. The blade is cleansed and the body is removed. On the next mound is the head held between 2 poles. The Yamada-Ryu walks over and faces it. He raises his hands. He states his aim. Migen Tatewari. From our last video, we cannot help but think of his father. He strikes. One of the audience members sums up the cut. Brilliant. He is informed that the northern Maki Bugyo desires a live decapitation. The Yamada-Ryu agrees. He returns the blade. For this, he will need his personal katana. The prisoner is brought to the yard, face covered with paper and bound while accompanied by 2 guards. She struggles and begs for mercy. The Maki Bugyo informs him that the prisoner's name is Yoarashi Osen. She has killed many men, and he suspected she would struggle. But her resistance surpasses his expectations. He asks the Yamada-Ryu if he is able to handle it. Before he can answer, the struggling prisoner's face covering comes off. Her face is dirty but beautiful, covered in tears. In her throes, she locks eyes with her executioner. They recognize each other. He is a teenager on a small marsh, poised with his fishing rod and worm. The beautiful girl walking by stops to point out the odd fishing location. He corrects her. Not fish, toads. She's aghast. Right at that moment, he gets a bite. He lifts his prize triumphantly. She's disgusted, but intrigued. Why? He explains it is for Haya Netaba. You skin a toad caught on the 15th day of August. Dry the skin in the shade, and when it is hard, use it to rub the blade. The blade is then soaked in oil overnight and then rinsed. This is said to give it the ability to cut even through bone. She's impressed. The boy looks so sweet and handsome. The frog, as if sensing the distraction, takes his chance at freedom. It leaps away from his control and right into her lap. As she falls back in surprise, the boy scrambles to retrieve the creature, but inadvertently grabs her. He recoils in shame. The girl is stunned by the shyness. It seems the boy can't grab his toad, yet he can grab hers, but doesn't catch it. She is amused as he grows more flustered. She undresses him. He is sweating. She loves the strong, shy types. She is eager to teach him. And she does. As she walks away, now dressed, she pauses and turns back once more. It is then he realizes she has his purse, her cost for making him a man. He asks for her name. She says, Ichigo Ichi, but they shall never meet again. Back in the present, she begs and pleads. They have a bond. She implores her life for that bond's sake. The Yamada-Ryu acknowledges her slight acquaintance to his lords. He assures them the job can still be done. He is reminded of her crimes. Men lured to bed and killed, 7 in total. A substantial amount of money was stolen. Yamada-Ryu understands. He will perform Kubiuchi Tameshi. The prisoner understands her fate. Her face is covered with another paper. Her struggle gets more vulgar, more violent. The courtyard they stand in is called Kubiuchiba. It is also called Dontanba. It is where the phrase Saigo no Dontanba, the last gasp, comes from. The prisoner is knelt on the ground. The throat and the wrist knots are cut. The robe is pulled off the inmate's shoulders and tucked into the thighs. This is done to ensure that the robe, which could be kept by the jailer, did not get bloody. Sometimes, the prisoners in the throes of terror released waste as well. This would be cleaned from the cloth. The sword, which had gone through Netaba, is rinsed. Once it is, the Yamada-Ryu is ready. He walks towards the prisoner, sword in hand, grim determination. The prisoner still wrestles. The afternoon shines on them both. He raises his sword, prepared to strike. The prisoner gives no opening in her struggle. Out of nowhere, he exclaims 2 words. It's canceled. The prisoner pauses at the words and silently hangs her head. The Yamada-Ryu sees his opening and strikes. The cut is done professionally. The onlookers immediately exclaim their praise. The head falls into what is known as the blood collection pit. The heart still beats a few times. The pit handles that excess as well. The ceremony seems complete, but as the accolades are given, there is an interjection. He argues that the prisoner should not feel any relief at death. The words of the Yamada-Ryu therefore rob the punishment of meaning. He demands the decapitated head. When it is held high, he points to its final look at death. Comfort. Ease. unacceptable. He clarifies. There are two faces at death. Shoyokubi, the face of acceptance, and Munenkubi, the face that clings to life. This second should be a felon's face, and with his words, the Yamada-Ryu lied to the prisoner. A true master would succeed despite her struggles. A true master would, and he did not. The Yamada-Ryu demands the head. He holds it to his side. He kneels to the lords and voices his disagreement. He reminds them he is a masterless ronin like his father, and therefore does not serve the shogun. He was summoned for an O-Tameshi, and therefore was not acting in the capacity of an executioner. He is here to demonstrate his shigoto jutsu, the waza technique of cutting through living and dead flesh. His technique is a maintained cutting edge to serve in times of crisis. The face of the victim does not concern him. The reason he said the words were not to deceive or make the cut, which he has demonstrated he can. It was to spare her suffering. It was his heart for the first woman he ever loved. Fate brought them together in this manner, and his compassion was all he could give her. He allowed his emotion to enter his duties. He accepted their criticism. As for the challenge to his ability with a struggling victim, he will once again demonstrate his waza. He demands that barrels be brought. As he awaits them, he holds the head again. He could not know that this show of emotion and his father's passing would return to hurt his name. But that story is still to come. Nothing is harder to cut than bamboo, especially bound together. Even decapitations cannot compare. So 4 servants surround him, and the barrels are thrown. They roll chaotically. The Yamada-Ryu, unfazed, strike by strike, slices through each one. The gathered lords are utterly impressed by the skill. The title of Yoshitsugu is given to the third Asaemon. He will now be officially asked to handle O-Tameshi duties. He only has one request. The name Asaemon can be written with multiple Japanese characters. He requests that his be the rising sun. It was a childhood wish. When asked if his father would approve, he then breaks the news. His father committed seppuku, ritual suicide, the night before. He was his second, ending the ritual with Migen Tatewari. The Asaemon and the lords remain kneeling in stunned silence. The lords never could have imagined the burden the Asaemon was under. Tune in for the next chapter titled The Third, Monkey Fire Song. We will be aiming for a weekly format with this series and are still working on our social media platforms, so please be patient. Until these are up and running, Please enjoy the content and see you next time.